was a track called Pennywise, and when that used to go off in the club, man, it was like it starts with a kick, called kick, like 4/4 kick drum, and then it goes into like an aim with the drop and stuff. It's just so sick, so sick.
See, what I really like about these talks is like when you say that. In my mind, I already wrote like a tune. Do you know what I'm saying? Just like a dub plate, like. WOLFPACK!
WOLFPACK!
Assemble! I love it. What's going on? It's TC, and this is DnB Talk with Futurebound. Firstly, if you're new to the WOLFPACK, a very warm welcome, and if you're not, welcome back. And if you find any of the information in this video useful, please smash the like button. And if you're not already part of the community, part of the WOLFPACK, hit that subscribe button to receive notifications every time I upload some fresh new information. Also, don't forget to check out my samples and presets for Serum, Vital, Massive, and FMA. Check out my t-shirts and hats. Follow my Anthems playlist on Spotify. Follow my Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Links in the description. Today on DnB Talk, I have another soldier of the scene, producer, DJ, artist, founder of Viper Recordings, the vocal anthem executioner and moment maker extraordinaire, Futurebound. What do you say, bro?
Yeah, keep going. I like that.
Yeah, you like that. Introductions. That's what I'm saying. Oh, now that's over, we'll just chill into it.
How are you, man? You good?
I'm very good, yeah. Just, what is it, Thursday, the 18th of February? Yeah. And it's just, there's no gigs tomorrow, do you know what I mean?
I do what I do now. I start getting to this point of the week, mate, and I start pretending I'm having a dream where I'm pretending I'm going to go off to like Belgium on Friday, and then Saturday I'm going to do Bristol, then London, and then just if I tell myself that, it keeps my spirits high. Yeah,
I'm the same. When I'm in the shower now, I just pretend I'm in a hotel somewhere, and that just makes me feel like okay, this is all right. But we are so used to this travel stuff, and the fact that it's not happening, it is a little bit sort of like a bit weird, but it's really made me sort of count like my blessings in this sort of game. We were so blessed to be able to do that kind of stuff, and now that it's been taken away, it's a little bit like, okay, like that's what real life could actually be like if your career sort of went downhill or whatever. But we both worked so hard.
Do you know what, as well? I think little periods like this, you've got to learn from it, you know what I mean? And you've got to, like, certain revenue streams stop in your business here, there, whatever, and you've got to create new ones, you know what I mean? So you've got to learn. It's always a learning experience, man. And I'd say one thing I've learned is not to take anything for kind of granted anymore, mate, because getting on a plane and going to play in Czech Republic or whatever, oh, God, I miss it so much, mate. I really do.
So do I.
I miss feeling alive, you know? We can sit in the studio all day long, can't we, mate, and just kind of make beats and make new tunes and all that. But if we're not testing it on people, on big rigs, it's just not the same, is it? You need to feel bass in your chest and kind of,
It's true. You really do need to test the tunes out. And I wonder, actually, if there's not going to be like a generation of producers in this time who are just coming through that are going to make music that's so different because it's not being tested in the clubs. So it might be actually a really sort of interesting thing. And there might be an opportunity for sort of like, I remember before I was a DJ, I was making music just for me, like to play really in the environments that I was like around my friends. And it was probably a lot more musical than it was kind of club mentality.
More listening. Yeah. More listening than club,
So what I usually start off with these things is just to talk a little bit about like your history in drum and bass. And usually I just sort of say, what was the first, can you remember the first drum and bass tune that you ever heard? Mine was like at my piano teacher's was a Ronnie Size tune called Time Stretch, and it was just left on the record deck, and I heard it and I was like, wow, and it totally blew my mind. What was like the first drum and bass tune that you ever heard? Okay, well, so the first drum and bass tune I ever heard, mate, it goes back to like the early 90s, like when I was raving. I fell out of school in about 1989 and just went straight, didn't know what I was going to do in my life, and went straight into music, you know what I mean? Totally by accident. And it was like entering a whole new world that I'd walked into, and I was like, I'd found me, you know? I'd never been trained to any musical instruments when I was younger. All I knew was football.
And I kind of left school not knowing what I wanted to do, and then I found music, man. And it was all I could want to do, all I could ever think about, you know what I mean? And, you know, so I came from, when I got into it, it wasn't just about drum and bass at that point, you know, that hadn't formed almost. It was kind of house music, it was all under the one umbrella, you know? But I reckon around 1991, obviously I was going to a lot of raves in Birmingham and London, and you could hear a little split in the sound between 4/4 kicks of coming out of Belgium and also the addition of breakbeats over the top of them, you know what I mean?
Was that like sort of the jungle techno? Is that sort of the vibe?
I'm talking about Top Buzz times here, you know what I mean?
Yeah, wicked.
And Mickey Finn and all those guys, they were the pioneers for me, and
legendary.
So, yeah, I mean, on that tip, I mean, you'd probably say there's so many different tunes, but there was a track called Pennywise, and when that used to go off in the club, man, it was like it starts with a kick. Called kick, like 4/4 kick drum, and then it goes into like an aiming with the drop and stuff. It's just so sick.
See, what I really like about these talks is like when you say that, in my mind I already wrote like a tune. Do you know what I'm saying? Just like a dub plate, like a 4/4 kick into like an aiming. That would be actually quite sick right now.
I know,
and I love that. That's
what used to go on back then, man. That was what it was all about. It was like a multitude of different things going on in the tune. There was no limits. There was no like, oh, you know, what will that person think about it? Or, you know, no one give a fuck, man. It was just trial and error, you know.
I guess like most of the limitation was the equipment that you would be using in those days to make music. And like I got some of it behind me there. And actually, but within that limitation is like I feel like the true kind of creativity in some of this dance music. Because nowadays we're so spoiled with like a billion plugins and like DAWs with like 1,000 channels, and they don't go out of time, and like you could just record into it, and like there's just no issues. Like it was hard enough to even like have a thing that when I started that could record kind of CD quality audio. The only thing would have been a DAT tape, and like they would just get chewed up all the time and just like all that stuff.
Yeah. That's it, man. I mean, right now, I guess we've all got lazy, haven't we, Tom? Do you know what I mean? And kind of like, you know, we're sitting here looking at this one screen. Everything's in that one box down there, you know, and it used to be nice kind of like just swinging around, switching the EMU there, going to the desk there, you know, and then back to the computer.
I really miss those days. That's why I built this sort of like weird console in front of me with buttons. Because I just love the physicality of, like, with Ableton, I can load plugins with buttons. So I just sort of like, if I need an EQ, it's like 2 button presses away instead of like, I hate menus and mice and that kind of stuff. But that old...
to be honest, I'm getting a new studio built at the moment downstairs in the house, and I'm in a bit of a limited space. I'm in a temporary room. So, when I get downstairs in the bigger space, I'm going for it. You know, I'm going to get a lot more hands-on gear. So I'm not just looking at the one thing. You know, just as you were saying. You know what I mean? So it's a bit more physical, and you're touching buttons and kind of, you know, opening your minds and making it think about other things. You know, because
I do think
you can slip into the one sort of direction, can't you? Like if you're doing the computer, I'm going to open Serum or whatever, or, you know, and you're doing the same things over and over, and it's good to have something else going on.
I do think it could be a little bit dangerous buying too much equipment though. I see a lot of producers and like they get like a big wall of like modular gear, and it seems like they end up just making like sounds like doot. They're just sort of like on that sort of thing, and it doesn't seem like as much.
I love the ones who buy guitars or something, and I've never learned how to play the guitar. They're never going to learn how to play the guitar, but it's just good to have it there.
They've got a load of, it's sort of like all the gear and no idea sort of thing. And I actually recently sold a few of my hardware keyboards because I felt like if I was really going to go in on these keyboards, it would be a 6 to 8 week process. And in that time, I could probably write 5 or 6 bangers just in the computer. And when I first started, I did start on like the samplers and the Atari and that kind of stuff, but then I moved on to basically just being in the computer. But I still like the jog wheel sort of vibe. That hands-on kind of muscle memory to making music is actually a really important thing for me. I love these buttons. They're called Stream Decks, and you can put they're like little screens, and you can basically like program any macro, like key commands or anything like that, and you can put your own sort of like stuff in there, and there's menus, and it goes in deep. But
yeah. I mean, is it as good as this though?
What's that? Yes.
I mean, yeah, right.
Yeah, they're sick. They're actually sick.
When you've got one of them, Tom, you come back to me, yeah?
I actually quite like that sort of thing. I like when you're on tour, you can just stick it on your laptop and
that's why I bought it, to be honest, just to kind of in the old haversack, you know what I mean? And you can, so it is good for that. But
so what DAW do you use mainly for like your production? Is it? I feel like you're a Cubase guy. I don't know why I want to say that, but I feel like it's Cubase in there from the sound.
Yeah, I've used them all, to be honest. I started on Cubase in the 90s, and then I had to go on Logic for a bit. Then I went to Pro Tools. Didn't like that. Actually, Mate told me to turn off Pro Tools. He made me see the light about it. And then I went back to Cubase, and never gone back really. I mean, you can use whatever you want, can't you? Really, Fruity Loops doesn't matter. It's what's inside your head, isn't it? It's what is coming out of you, what your head wants to make, and what your ears want to hear.
I've never heard anybody complain about Cubase. This is the one thing. Like, I hear people complaining about Logic and it crashing and Ableton and the sound of it. And Cubase seems to be one of them ones which you can sort of drive the output, you can drive the channels, and you can it's quite a forgiving DAW, I think, in comparison. I've never used Cubase personally.
It's great, man. It has everything I want, everything I need, it's, the Vary audio for when you're doing like pitching and vocal processing and all the rest of it. And I've got UAD stuff, so I've got the whole UAD collection, and I've got everything I need. As you were saying before, Tom, I think people who have like too much stuff, and you can just overthink things then, can't you? And it's better to be a master of certain things rather than trying to be a jack of all trades.
100%. And with your music, like, you have a lot of top lines on your like a lot of singing on it, and I really love that. I love the song elements in your music. And I'm just wondering, sort of, how involved do you get with the sort of maybe not the writing, but like the input into like the top lines? Is that something that you really care about, like what they're saying and like the structure of the top lines, or do you kind of let the vocalists sort of do what they're going to do? From your point of view, how involved are you in that sort of writing process? I find that fascinating.
When it comes to vocal tracks and stuff, the way I like to do it, Matrix is a bit the same as well. As like, it's getting an instrumental in place first and then letting a vocalist work around it that way rather than going the other way. We have done tracks like that where we've kind of got the vocals come in and then we'll chords around it or whatever. But I mean, once I think it's always good to let a vocalist, unless you're going in from scratch with the studio, with a singer or writer, I like to let them do their thing, and then when they send me it back, if something's pricking my ears up and catching me ear, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this has got something here, then come up with some different melodies possibly, or some lyric changes, to kind of suit what you need, you know what I mean?
Yeah, cool. So you are kind of involved in the sort of, it's a back and forth. It's not like you sort of just you can't just chuck it on there. When it comes to vocals,
I know what I want, you know what I mean? I know what my ears stand up to, you know what I mean? I know what I want to hear and stuff. When we had like a bit of crossover stuff going on, like stuff that went in the top 40 and whatever. It was all by accident, Tommy, do you know what I mean? It was completely by accident. It was, but when it happened, it was really a good door to walk through and a good experience, you know what I mean? Because you were suddenly working with some top writers who kind of showed you different ways of thinking about writing tracks, you know what I mean, and stuff. But deep down inside, I love a grimy DnB record, you know what I mean? I love that shit, mate. It'll never leave me, drum and bass. It's DNA,
I think we all come from that basis, which is like, we all love a real just like banger, just beats and bass. And from the conversation I had yesterday with Spy, we would talk about foghorns, and I was like, "Do you like foghorns?" And he is like, "Yeah, I really do like foghorns. I never play any foghorn tunes, but I like the fact that the new generation are making like dark drum and bass again, because it really opens up that full spectrum. When you've got a more commercial sounding track, you really want to double drop it with like a grimy track underneath that everyone knows to get that sort of double kind of reaction. It's just so much of that spectrum in drum and bass, which I feel is just, I don't know, there's no other genre where they do double drops. And well, I don't know if there is. I mean, I don't think there is really.
It's always been about the impact, hasn't it? It's all our drum and bass is about impact, you know what I mean? There's no, as you said, there's no other genre out there that just focuses on that initial 2 records slamming, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or 3, 4 records in some cases.
Depending on the skill levels. I mean, I'm a 2-deck guy. I'm not really like, I just can't really get my head around the 3 or 4 deck. I'll do 4 decks, but it's really only 2 tunes that are going to be in at any one time. I'm not like this sort of like...
I know, yeah. I mean, there's got to be clarity, isn't it? I mean, you know, I totally respect people who are, you know, technical ability and all that, and kind of, but I think we've got to remember not to go... Let's remember that we're playing for the punters as well, and they've got to hear clarity on what's coming at them. If it becomes a wall of sound and a mush just to make the DJ feel good, well, then that's where we've got to look at ourselves and kind of go, hang on a minute, you know. But yeah, anyway, just going back to the vocal thing as well, Tom, what we were saying is, you know, it was a really good experience and a good door to walk through that world, you know what I mean? It's not a world I want to stay in, but it was a world that I enjoyed experiencing, do you know what I mean?
I think if you go in sort of from a wide-eyed perspective without any experience in the music industry, it's quite easy for people to, it becomes a more business thing. And if you're not sort of like, if you don't keep your head screwed on and like keep your roots to yourself, then you'd end up having people try to influence the direction you're going creatively when you get into that world. And having a strong mind, and the main thing about this channel is it's like new producers, and if there's new producers, you know, and it's about teaching and learning, you know, you've got to remember, if you do blow up, you've got to stay true to the roots that you came from. And I don't think you ever drifted from that path, but it, as you know, when it can be a really, you'll have like A&R guys going like, do you think maybe you could make a house tune or something? And you're like, well, I'm not really a house DJ. Do you know what I'm saying? So,
yeah. No, but that's the thing with that world. It's like when you're in it, it's great when you're there, right? But when you want to try and bring any experimental things into the whole thing, there's more cooks in the kitchen who want to keep it more in this road, and they don't want you to go in a different lane. They want you to keeping that winning formula there. But that's not what we're about as artists. It's not what we got into this whole thing for. So that when that started happening for me, I was like, I need to get back to the dance floor. What did Brendan Collins, the raver, how did he feel when that bass hit off that Pennywise tune? You know, I need to start feeling that again. You know what I mean? I'm making tunes for me again, man. Do you know what I mean?
So when you work with Matrix, what's the dynamic between different locations? I mean, obviously now we're all locked down, but did you work in the same studio on them tunes, or was it like 2 studios, sort of like you'd send projects between each other, that kind of vibe? I'm just interested to know, like,
well, I mean, going back to like our first album when we first started working together, there was a lot more of like in the studio together. You know what I mean? Then over time, you know, the whole things like over the internet kind of started coming to more into it, and it was quicker sending sessions to each other, and we were doing it that way. But even up until like I'd say like 3 or 4 years ago, we were still getting in there together, you know what I mean, and doing that. And obviously COVID's kind of put an end to that at the moment. Yeah, I mean we've kind of been working together 15 years now, do you know what I mean? And I'm sure we're going to do a load more tunes together. But right, obviously we just done an album last year, and it's nice just to kind of have a get away, isn't it? You know what I mean? Kind of like spread your own wings a little bit and kind of do that, you know, and then come back to what's there, you know?
I've always been kind of jealous of people that are in groups.
Why, mate?
Because you can both go and DJ in 2 places at one time, which I always thought was just brilliant. And just like having somebody to... From a lone artist perspective, if I'm trying to get feedback on a tune, or even some kind of like drive, or, you know, when you've made something, I have to send it to somebody. It would probably be like Chrissy, or, you know, just somebody who's going to come back quickly with some feedback. But there's still that sort of lag time of sending it, him listening to it, coming back to me. Whereas when you're in a group... Do you
know what I love about working with someone in the studio is you can be in the hot seat and you can be doing all that. You're not exactly the listener all the time then. I always find that if someone else jumps in the hot seat and I can go back there and sit at the back of the room and just listen to it being played, I can become the listener then and go, oh no, it needs that. Let me jump in again now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And listening to tunes with fresh ears is such a thing. And like, actually, a lot of times I'll get my missus just to come and listen to what I'm working on. Because when she's listening to it, I'm kind of listening to it through her ears in a funny kind of way. Like, and again, when you play things to people, but you're in the same room, that does allow you to have that fresh head and listen to stuff with. And I can imagine that, you know, you could step out the studio with whoever your writing partner is, and then come back in and they've made a couple changes and they go, check this out, this is going to be sick. And then you listen to it. Yeah, I really like that. I really like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I'm really jealous of that.
Bounce then for me. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes, I mean, I'm slow, man. I don't know what you. I know you're fast, but I'm slow. I kind of, I'll start something like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, longer, and just put it away, and then I'll open it again, and then just if there is something there, that's when I'll take it. Then, do you know what I mean?
Do you back up on 2 hard drives? Just checking.
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
yeah,
one on the computer, and I done a backup the other day actually. Yes.
It's like this sort of, that's the sort of boring stuff that I like to talk about, but like it's not all the glamorous side of like traveling and, you know, all that stuff. And like even in the studio, it's not always making tunes. Sometimes it's just like actually spending a whole day copying all the stuff you made that month over to like a second drive for a backup, or like sometimes it is that sort of vibe.
All that stuff because do you know what I really like about studio days? And I had one the other week. It was just a week of making some beats, not caring about having working to a deadline, just making some beats, making some cool chords, or you know, just getting lost in some of the new gear that I've bought and just trying stuff. And I'd say I bought some new gear from Output. You heard of those guys? No,
is that a plugin company?
Yeah. And
okay.
Some real interesting gear, man. You know what I mean? Some real interesting effects that you can add to what you've already got there. Do you know what I mean? Just to kind of add a bit of weirdness to it all. You know.
What's one of their plugins that I think they might have sent? What's like their main plugin?
Yeah, I mean, some of the plugins that they've got, mate. I mean, they've got one called Portal. They've got one called Thermal, which is a distortion thing, which is really sick, man. What else have you got? They've got another thing called Movement. But they've got. Hang on, I'll show you. Inside Contact.
In the studio.
They've got analog strings, and then they all run with like a synth run with inside Contacts. There's one called Substance. There's another one called Brass and Winds. I love this thing. This is great. You can actually get the new breed might like that for some of the horns that you can get out of it.
Yeah.
But yes.
I've been making Contact instruments actually recently. I've made sort of like 15 or 20 instruments just for me to use in the studio, and I do it like I actually make artwork and everything, and I'm not like planning on selling any of them, but I just love the idea of having. I got the idea from. Have you seen Junkie XL's videos on YouTube? He makes.
I know
music.
who he is, but I've not seen his videos.
So he does like film trailers, and for each film, he'll make a bunch of Contact instruments just for that film with like the artwork, and like it's. I found that super inspiring. Just to make stuff that's sort of bespoke for my music. And it kind of takes me back to like the days when you'd be using like an old sampler, and just like the amount of love that you would put into the samples that you put into the tunes is just like, you know, I feel like back in day you would, because it took so much longer to chop up the samples and to like, you'd sample them off vinyl or sample CDs. You'd be like, it felt like there was much more of like you'd built your house in a way of sounds within your thing. And I love that, making sort of the computer my own space in order to work.
Right. Yeah.
You were talking about new VSTs. There's one called Vital. Have you seen Vital?
Yeah, I've seen it. I've actually downloaded this since I've seen some of your videos about it. I've only listened to your videos through the phone or whatever on the headphones, whatever. But I can already hear the meat and on the bone on this thing. You know what I mean?
I think there's legs for everybody to discover at least a few sounds in there that they make that are signature sounds for themselves. I think.
Well, I've seen you make one, Tom, and it was a tune already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It sounds incredible. So I have got it. I've just been a bit lazy because I've got some new stuff. And to be honest, I didn't start the year too good because I got COVID and was really ill with that.
Okay.
And I've been playing catch up ever since. But I have been a bit lazy because I've downloaded that thing. So that is definitely on my list to kind of get my head inside that. Yeah.
How much time do you manage to find? I find it so difficult. I get up at 6 a.m, and then I've got that sort of 6 till 9, which I'll work on like music or prep for the day, or
you start at 6 a.m.
I've never been this disciplined in my life. I don't know what happened, but sort of maybe 4 or 5 months ago, I just started waking up in the mornings and being like, you know what, I'm going to get at it, because it's just this. I look at my diary and I look at the week and I look at how many hours there are in a day. And then if you zoom way out, you can see like the date you're going to die. And then you can just work out how much you can do between now and then. And it's like, I better get my acting gear because I don't have much time left in order to be able to do everything that I want to do in my life. So like,
I need to take a piece of your medicine, mate, because that sounds good, man. Start at 6 a.m. I do know what you're saying. I've got 2 kids as well, man, and they're homeschooled at the moment. And any parents out there who's got kids at home, it's just messing with the week, you know.
I can imagine it's really difficult to find those chunks of time. And I got the idea from Jim Heist. So Heist gets up at 4 a.m. and works like 5 hours on music before he starts like his day teaching. And I was like, okay, that's amazing that you're doing that. But the main sort of vibe around it is, I mean, I used to be pretty much nocturnal. When I was DJing, obviously we were both doing the DJ thing, and you'd be up so late at the weekends that I just never, if I had 4 weekends or a month of gigs, I probably wouldn't even bother flipping back to being a daytime person like in the week, because I don't have kids or anything like that. So it would just be like, I'll stay nocturnal. I actually found that I could draw a lot of energy making music in the nighttime. But the fantastic thing about getting up in the mornings is it's nighttime energy, but with a fresh head of a good sleep, which is just like so good. So getting up in those and it's such an old man thing to do. I feel like it's just sort of like a certain age, it just went click, and I'm like, oh god, I'm a 6 a.m. kind of getting up in the morning kind of person now.
I'll have to try it, man. But I mean, I tell you what I've been doing as well. Last couple of weeks, I've been working late. Again, there's something about working in the night, man. I can't explain it. It's just nocturnal, and just everyone else is asleep, and you're in here making music, and I just put the Odyssey headphones on, you know, and just crank it up and go away, you know. But there's something about just being in that world at night, you know.
There's a deceptive creative period between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. when you know you should go to bed, and that's when the best ideas come. Or like if you're making a tune and your missus like, we need to go supermarket now. That is when the idea is just like bang, and you got to just like 10 minutes, you just like get it out. And you've been sat there for 5 hours doing pretty much nothing up until that point. And then it's just like, I got to do this now. But so you run Viper Recordings, which is fantastic label, incredible artists. And I'm fascinated by the idea of what it's like to have so many creative people firing tunes at you all the time, and you like having to sort of juggle like release schedules and merchandise and all of that. I'm sure you've got like an amazing team. I imagine you said that you do like a Zoom call on Mondays and that kind of stuff, like when I was trying to organize this thing with you. And like, how do you find like juggling the whole label artist sort of dynamic? Is that something that you
I won't lie, Tom, it's eats a lot of the week away, you know what I mean? But it's totally worth it, you know. And as we have got a great team in place, you know, obviously the label was just me on my own for a good period of time. And then about 5 years into it of existence, more people came on board then, do you know what I mean? We've just grown and grown from that point. The team that we've got in place, everyone kind of knows their fields of work and what to do. But we all chip in on each other's ideas anyway, do you know what I mean? There is a lot of music that's to go through per week, you know. And I'm not one of those people who I'm not one of those label owners or A&R people who kind of likes just go back and says, yeah, I like it, let's do something. And, you know, it's not what I do. I like to feed back properly on a record. I like to get it over to that finishing point and not feedback with stuff that just for the sake of saying stuff, but, you know, constructive stuff. Sometimes you don't need to do that. Sometimes it's hot as it is, you know? Yeah, so it takes a bit of time, man, you know, especially when you've got a good few artists on the label and whatever. And from an artist point of view, it's a bit of a kick up the arse for me as well. It makes me go, oh, shit, you know, I've got to get my game on here. Because
I can imagine some young hot artist sends you like some fire dub plate and you're like, I need to step up my game. And
I'm like, how long have you been around, mate? Like, I got into it 6 months ago, mate.
A lot of like, I know, right? It's mental how like the learning curves now, but they got YouTube, you know. And actually, this is what my YouTube is really about. It's helping artists to come through and just sort of spreading information. And like, if you were a new artist now, if I was a new artist now and I saw Viper in my sights and I was like, I really, you know, respect all the music that's come out on this label. And how would I go about sending a record I'm going to do a video actually about the best way to send music to labels, but what would be like the ideal sort of like delivery of a record for you guys? Would it be like 1 or 2 MP3s to like, I'm not sure where they could send it, but I'm sure they could find out where to send it. But you wouldn't want to get like 100
The best
tunes.
advice I would always give to new producers about sending music to labels or DJs or whatever is make it nice and A to B. Sometimes people don't want to have to go to there, click the link and download it. I know it sounds a bit like lazy or whatever, but you can imagine the amount of stuff that's coming in per day, and people just want to click on the link and they want the SoundCloud there and the music coming out. So it's
a SoundCloud, private SoundCloud link is just like ideal from your point of view. Quick flick through, and if you're liking the tunes, you'll reach out and be like, we want to hear more, or we want to like. And can they just
keep the link private, enable download, and just make it a very quick step for anyone who's going to listen to it at the other end. And that's the best way. I mean, in terms of getting the music to Viper, we have a new way of doing that, which we're about to set up at the moment. We do have a demos inbox at the label, but we're about to do it a different way now. So I'll have more info on that soon. But I mean, there's many ways. I mean, a lot of people get to me on Facebook. A lot of people get to me on Instagram, and you can get to anyone. It's if you want someone to hear it, then it's very easy. Yeah, that's what I'd say. That's the best advice I can give to any new producers. Make it nice and simple for the person at the other end. You don't want to be downloading, transfer links and down because it's just it's more storage on the computer.
Sometimes I get sent like a WeTransfer with like 10 tunes and they're all 24-bit WAVs, and I'm just like.
Yeah.
I don't have enough space on my computer for this, for one. Like, my computer's already full of plugins and all sorts. So, if you are going to send that WeTransfer, then make it a Dropbox at least. And just a 320 MP3 is fine. But I think, as you say, a private SoundCloud link is definitely the way forward. And I would never have thought of that. So that's awesome. I think, because you're in that situation as a label owner, like, it's really, that is such a key piece of information. Just like the quickness of delivery is just like bang. And then, whoever's going to listen to those tunes that come in through that email, if they hear something that's fire, it is, people are going to listen to it, and you will get back to people, I would imagine, because if it's something that's super, super sick.
I always go back to, look, honestly, Tom, I wouldn't say it, but there's so much music coming in per day, you know what I mean? I'm sure you get it as well. And there's only so many hours in the day, we're kind of humans trying to juggle a lot of plates, you know what I mean? There's a lot of spinning plates going on in our lives. And so just make it nice and quick and easy. And I try to go back to everyone, but it's not always possible, isn't it? You know what I mean? Sometimes you just, it's whatever. But I do appreciate everyone who sends us music, man. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I get sent
and
more...
even the ones that even if it's just the drums have caught me here or whatever, I'll go back and try and make an effort to go back to them and say, look, thank you for sending that. But, keep us, informed on the new music and stuff that you're working on. Yeah, Dropbox or SoundCloud is the best way of sending it.
I get so much music in a day, especially leading up to the weekend, even though we've got no gigs. Like, I might get 100 to 200 promos a week into my inbox. And that's from established producers and labels. So it is definitely... I used to be so much hotter on it when I was DJing, I would listen to pretty much everything if I possibly could. And I feel like coming back into the raves is going to be a bit of a shock. I don't think I've updated my record box in like 3-4 months. I haven't done any sort of live streams or anything like that. I've just been, I did one.
I know, man. Yeah, but do you know what? Back in September, Tom, there was... the Letter Roll guys asked me to come over and DJ and stuff, and it was just about as the new lockdowns were starting to kick in and all that. People saying, "Oh, don't go! This person's just cancelled that." And I thought, well, you know what? These guys are trying to make an effort there. They're trying to keep things alive. And so I went to Czech Republic, and I ignored all the things, and I went, and I had to do a 2-week quarantine when I got back. But fuck it, I just needed to go and feel alive again. I needed to hear the bass loud, and just get out there. But I tell you what, boy. Mate, I was rusty,
Okay.
I was rusty as a fucking sheriff's badge. Swear to God.
I can imagine. I mean, I'm not looking forward to it. I'm hoping that it's like riding a bike and you just sort of, you you just kind of get that muscle memory.
I've been DJing all right through the lockdowns, mate. I've been doing live streams and all that.
Oh,
So
wow.
I've been on the decks.
Yeah.
I've been doing it. I never take my eye off the music. But when you go onto a system with different monitoring, loud as hell, your ears have to equalise to that and kind of get used to it. And for the first 20 minutes when I went out there, mate, gee whiz.
That's such an important point to come to, is like, you can DJ in your bedroom all the time, but when it comes to actually being in a club environment with people bustling around the decks, with a strange monitoring environment, maybe a mixer that you haven't used before, just like it could be anything that you're faced with in that situation, and the ability to sort of just kind of go, okay, all right, I'm just going to mix tunes. I'm not going to try and come in and be like, Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people just hear us sometimes, and like they just see the DJ behind the decks and whatever. But sometimes you can turn up at a show and there's like a monitor right at the other end of the thing, and you kind of, it's a bit of a struggle to do the job, so people don't really see that thing. They just see the DJ, and
I think one of the scariest things that can happen to a DJ, from my point of view, is when the monitor's just cut out halfway through your set for like maybe just sort of like, I don't know, maybe like a minute, and you're just like,
it freezes, your whole body freezes.
Because you just like, you're so dependent on that feedback to be able to get the timing right between the tunes and to be able to hear what it is that you're doing. And like sometimes monitors have like thermal cutouts or something like that, and if you just go a little bit hot on the monitors, they cut them out. I think sometimes sound engineers are just like messing with you, and they just hit mute just for a second, just to kind of like.
Mate, do you know what? To be honest, you know what?
I know an artist manager who travels with their artists quite a lot, and they do a sound check at every single show, and they go to the extent of like, unlocking those sort of racks that are locked and messing with like cut-offs and stuff, like actually tuning a rig properly for their artists, because it's such an important thing that,
That's all good when you're earning 10k a set though, mate.
Well, it ain't me. But yeah, it's like one of them other sort of electronic musician kind of guys. Yeah, but it's true. I mean, sometimes I haven't done a sound check in a long time, to be fair. But it is one of those things that sometimes I will just go and stand in the middle of the dance floor if it's not too rammed out when I get to the event, and I'll just listen to the sound system, and you'll get an idea like, okay, in this place I don't really need to like be jacking the top end on the tunes because it's already pretty bright on the dance floor, and you can get a sort of a little bit of a vibe. And I think also like a conversation with the sound engineer is always a good thing if there's time, if it's not too crazy in there, and just saying like, is the DJ before me running it too hot? Should I like turn my gains down? And a lot of times,
I like to do that as well, man. Get find out what's going on, and that's what's important about getting to the show a bit earlier as well, isn't it? So you get settled, you just get used to the system in the room, and speak to the sound guy as well. And
there is this whole other side of way of thinking of it, and sometimes I do like to just turn up literally 2 minutes before I'm about to play, because I mean, sometimes if you're stood there for half an hour before, the sort of like impact of your appearance, I think it really depends on what territory you're in. If you're in like America, like the actual appearance is a part of the sort of branding, and like they actually pay people to just make appearances in clubs in the States sometimes.
Yeah, I know they do, yeah.
So like sometimes... I know
what you're saying there though, Tom. It's like, cause sometimes when you're standing there for half an hour and the DJ before you's playing tunes that were going to be, you wanted to play like in the first like 20 minutes of your set or whatever, it's like, oh my God, he's played that. And then you're like, what am I going to do here?
Yeah.
And so sometimes it is nice to rack up there and go on, you know what I mean? You don't know when you're that, you know what I mean? You just do your thing.
And I think, crowds are pretty forgiving in that situation if you do double up tunes. And I feel like nobody's going to play the tunes in the way that you play them with the mixes that you do, or, there is a lot of that doubling that goes on of tunes in things. I have been to things where, sometimes where it's like an event and the hotel's like an hour's drive from the venue, and you're in another country with like two other DJs, and they're like, nah, you have to come sort of like an hour before, and you got to watch all of the other DJs and stuff. Like, sometimes that can be a bit brutal to
I hate that, man.
Yeah, it can be tough. It can, but that's just the sort of DJ sort of like problems. But I've heard that I think you told me one time you turned up at like a real big festival and plugged in your USB sticks, and every single track was not the track like within Rekordbox, had like totally like gone haywire.
Yeah. Something that corrupted on the USBs. Oh my God, mate! You know that feeling when your blood runs cold around your body. And you're the headline name on the night.
I'm fascinated. Was it a really big one? Like, was it a proper big show?
Yeah, it was a big show. I think it was in Australia somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it was. And I'd actually got going on the set, and then something corrupted with the USBs, and emergency loop was kicking off every few things. And I had it going off so nice as well. Do you know what I mean? And it just ruined the whole vibe.
Did you have was it one USB and a link between the 4 decks?
No, I've never usually done that. I've never done that. The only time I do that is when I'm playing with Matrix and we're on stage together.
Okay.
When you can only have like 2 USBs in each. But I used to take 3 or 4 USBs, mate. Yeah, and just have them in each one. Do you know what I mean? So there's none of that. It's like a little extra security thing, I'll tell you what happened last year, mate. I went around about this time last year. I'm not going to say the place I went to, but there was about 10,000 people in front of us, and they never had link set up. Can you believe it? They never had link set up, and there was, I think the monitor was like 10 meters away either side.
Wow.
I just couldn't believe it. It ruined the whole thing,
I'm very kind of an active guy, and I would be like, I don't actually travel with Cat 5 cables, but I might add that. But because I came from a Serato background, I used to drill, actually drill at home, setting up my Serato within the time it took for a record to finish, 2 minutes. So I knew I could set up my Serato in 2 minutes. I had like checklists of all the equipment I had to take with me, because one piece of that whole Serato thing and you're not going to be able to play. Like if you miss one cable, or you haven't got your controller, or you forget your box, or you forget your CDs, there's like so many elements in that. There's a lot of failure points within that kind of like DJing thing. So when I moved over to using Rekordbox, I went onto USB sticks, and I take 4, and they're all mirrored. So I can always have one for each deck. And to be honest, I would only use 2 really. I might have a third, and I'll put like an old school playlist on the third thing. So if I find like I need to do like a little extra double drop or something like that, then I'll just use the third deck. But I was always mainly 2. And I'm a very kind of active guy when it comes to that. Like I've turned up at things and the monitors aren't high enough, and I'll go and find like a box and just like get a box and do it myself.
I am as well.
Yeah, I'll just get involved.
A lot of times you can see me dragging the sound guys. The sound guys saying we can't move the monitor. I'm like, okay, well, we'll see about that.
I'll fucking move them.
You can just see the monitor. I don't give a damn, man. I'm here to do a job, and I'm going to do that job.
Because I come from like an engineer background, I have no problem as well. If like one of the decks isn't working, that shit's getting unplugged, and I'm moving the other one over.
Exactly.
I just don't care.
I'm the same, man.
Yeah, it's just as long as it doesn't mess up the vibe of the night. I mean, there has been times where you pull out the wrong USB, or you skip Andy C's record when you're setting up your thing or something. But it's just part of the course of the whole kind of like fun of it. But so I got like a Discord channel, and there's a couple of questions that came in from people to ask you from the Discord. There's one from a guy called Mike Richmond, and he says, what's the story behind the name Futurebound? Was it you gotta tell me.
I remember in the early 90s when I started getting into like music production and stuff. I mean, I did a thing with a couple of other guys in Liverpool, and we called ourselves New Force Project, and then we put a few white labels out and stuff like that. And then around about 1995, I had another release in place, and this label called Scanner. We had like a lot of big labels after the release and whatever, and then they were saying, "Oh, you should get like a name in place now." Do you know what I mean? So I was like, "Okay, what can we do?" And then just I heard an MC shouting "Futurebound," and I thought, "There you go, bingo."
I love that. I really like, that's fate. coming through.
Yeah.
And, you know,
it was quick thinking. It was like, what can I use? I like the sound of that.
I really like the idea, you know, that you kept the name through the whole thing as well. There wasn't a change. When you got your name, I'm presuming those records that you were releasing were like sort of jungle techno or like kind of techno or housey kind of things, and it's sort of like developed all the way through. So like, what I'm actually fascinated like about the equipment that you were using to make those records. Was it like an Atari, and a sampler?
It was an Atari. It was an Akai S950.
Right.
A little small Mackie mixing desk. About 8 channels, I think it had. What else was there?
Did you have a compressor?
No.
This is what I love. This is what I love, right? Is like some of the best fucking records. I didn't know what a
compressor was.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Some of the best records were written on these janky systems, which is like, we're so spoiled now. I put a compressor on every channel, and it's like you can't put it. Like, you never used to be able to do that. And I know it's a super old man thing for me to be saying, like, but maybe records sound better without 50 plugins on each channel and just the sounds, and then maybe a little master, because you would have sent those tunes off to be mastered for vinyl. So that mastering engineer would have like brought them up to level.
That was his job then, to kind of bring that sort of dynamics to it. You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, obviously working in the box as well, mate, you know what it is, especially when you're getting new gear. I've always did it, you know. I thought I was going to enhance everything by adding too much to it, and it was taken away. You know, you really need to keep it simple. That's what I've learned as well over the last few years. Well, just keep it simple. Don't go too mad on it. Try things, but it doesn't need to be essential. It doesn't need to have all millions of plugins going on. Did you keep any of that old gear, or is it all sort of been sort of? I have, mate. I've got it downstairs. Actually,
for real,
in the new room. That's going to get filled. I've done my 64. Actually. Yeah, the DnB 64 was there, a Jomi compressor, but this was later, do you know what I mean? Not that original stuff that were all those tunes.
I'm on my second wave as well, like with this gear behind me. It's all plugged in, but I never use it. It's just there for show. Like, yeah, I mean, I could switch the Akai on, it's just, where's the button? And it just sounds like it sounds like an airplane. It's so ridiculous.
But yeah, man, those old 64 samplers and all that, the sound I used to get out of them things. The Akai was really good as well. But I noticed when you went over to the EMU 64s, you could do a little bit more with the filters and the oscillators and stuff like that.
Those EMU filters almost sort of defined a genre in drum and bass in themselves. Yeah. I think a lot of drum and bass people, I've heard stories of Bad Company using the EMU. I've heard stories, I think obviously like Matrix is Optical's brother, and like Optical was deep in this production thing. Yeah. It was such a great sound that came out of Virus.
Can you imagine their Sunday dinners round at their mums? Imagine the conversation that was getting passed between those two.
Amazing.
You know?
So much awesome information. I think even like Optical had a desk that was like one of the first desks to have like moving faders. I think he bought it was like
some 20 grand desk, wasn't it? Some really hot desk.
Yeah.
And I remember I went round there one time with J Magic. It must have been about the year 2000, something like that. And went in there and whatever into the studio, and he had the big desk that he had gathering dust there, and he'd gone back to the 24-track Mackie. But,
those Mackies had a sound as well, like a big sound in house music.
Yeah, you could drive the Mackies. You could really go into overdrive on those things.
What's really weird is I see them on eBay, and they're like 250 quid. And I'm just like, oh, mate, there's just so much gear out there that people... I mean, there's a little bit of a resurgence, I think, now in that old equipment. But, like, there's certain things... I think the synths are very coveted. But obviously, because everybody wants to sort of have a hybrid of hardware and software kind of together... those old desks are kind of going by the wayside now, and there's something about the sound. I know that going back to the last DnB talk that I had with Spy, he uses like a separate setup with an SSL, like a mini SSL desk, and he sort of sums through there. And I've got mixed feelings about summing. I like when I do summing on, I've got like a Valve desk that isn't plugged in at the moment. I like it.
TL audio, right?
Yeah, the TL audio thing, that channel 8 stopped working, and I stuck it on eBay, but no one would buy it, so I'm just going to keep it. But when you do some through a desk, you get that all that warmth and heaviness, but it's such a different sound to the current sound. And I don't want to be like too different. Well, I didn't, but now I'm feeling more and more like the tunes I used to make is what I'm known for. And really, I want to be doing more stuff that sounds like me as an artist from like the time when.
That's why I was saying earlier in the conversation, mate, is that, after a few years of making those like sort of crossover records and stuff like that, I wanted to get back to being me again. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to, what really got me, what excites me, do you know what I mean? And that's what I've been trying to do. And I mean, my latest single, Dangerous, it's got a vocal on it, kind of, I wouldn't say it's crossover a vocal, but it's the same type of vocal that it's a feel good, uplifting vocal for me. You know what I mean? I like the balance in records between, and I've always been like this, I like the balance between light and dark, and I love the way I love trying to come up with like nice feel-good chords, man, and warmth with vocals, and then just taking it down a different alley, you know what I mean?
It's like
my latest single does that.
Yeah, I really like the new single, and I can see what you're saying. Like, it's like sculpture in a way when you're doing production, because you're just trying to sort of add stuff and craft and then like take little bits of EQ away, and like you're almost sort of like trying to develop this, there's whole different levels to the way that the tune sounds. There's like the different elements that go into it, the individual sort of balance between those elements, and then there's sort of the overall sort of shape and sound of the sort of the balance of all the EQ. And I'm sure you've probably got, I don't know, do you still get things mastered, or are you on a self-mastering flex?
I just do it myself, yeah.
Yeah, so like there's that whole sort of other stage of like bringing it up to level.
That's a different dark art in itself, the mastering, you know what I mean? That's like
secret sauce.
You've got production in writing and stuff like that. And then you've got the actual final mixdown stage, and then you've got the mastering stage. They're all three different things, you know what I mean?
Do you find yourself do you compartmentalize those different processes, and you'll have like a writing stage and then sort of a mixdown stage, and you'll sort of devote days or chunks of time to those different parts of the process? Or will you just is it just sort of like it happens kind of thing?
I'd say when I was younger at this game, making records, it would just be about writing. It'd be just about the vibes and stuff like that. Because of the way that the whole sound's gone in the game, we're constantly fighting to stay up there, aren't we? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is what it is. And so I think what's happened to all of us, especially me as well, is when you're writing, half of my brain is saying, okay, is that kick sounding right? Is it, you need to go in there and sculpt that a bit more, you need to get the bass, and, so it's never ending, man. It's kind of like the two are working together now,
Are you a side chainy guy? Do you use the side chains much on things, or are you? I'm not.
Do you know what I've got into lately, mate? I've got into I really like LFO tool.
Ah, nice.
You can sculpt that, things in that. But when it comes to the kick and the bass, I've got into more and more doing it like manual and kind of drawing it in. Do you know what I mean?
So I sent you a tune called "Sounds Like TC" a while back, and you came back with feedback that you felt like the bass and the kick drum were kind of fighting each other, and I felt that was really interesting.
Sounds Like TC. It wasn't Sounds Like TC. It was the one after that. What was the one that you released in around about September time? Edge of Chaos.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. That was more on that kind of flex.
Edge of Chaos. I was saying about that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think my monitoring situation in this room isn't totally ideal, because I'm in sort of like quite a live sort of room, and I don't have a sub. So I'm just sort of using like two Adams, and I could probably do with like a sub below the desk. I know that, again, talking to Spy, he's got the 22-inch sub under his desk, and he was saying that he low cuts with a sharp low cut at 30 hertz.
Has he got that working while he's making the record, or during the mixing stage?
During the mixing stage, he's got two setups. He's got a setup for writing and a setup on the other side of the room for like mixing and mastering, which is it looks super sort of like teched out and a few bits of hardware and stuff. And
I've got to say, Tom,
WOLFPACK, yeah.
I for years I ignored these things, and everyone was going on about them and whatever, and people saying, "Oh, you should get one."
I got one in the garage. I got one in the garage.
Change it for me, that one.
I got one in the garage and it's not plugged in, and I probably should just attach it to the chair. I feel bad now. I'm getting schooled, but it's good. See, this is why these conversations are just so crucial, because, I'm going to get that WOLFPACK out now because of this whole conversation. And I think
that really helped me, I've got to say. And it was about kind of isolating everything else and not listening to the rest of the tune, just what's going on the sub. And in the tracks when I'm making stuff, I have like 4 other reference tracks that I know have got really good mix downs in the same sort of ballpark, whether they're not mine or other people's tracks, doesn't matter. But just for the whole thing of like what's going on in the mix down.
Again, that is such, like, I don't want to just skip over what you just said there, because I feel like that is actually for people who are learning and people who are just coming through. Referencing other tunes is fine. Like, it's really crucial to not only when you're making tunes to reference against other material to see if you're coming up to the par or the standard, but also when you're learning your tools, so like spectrum analyzers or metering, and this is more of a mastering kind of place, but by all means load up 100 of your favorite tunes and just sort of almost just like learn your room as well, like learn your monitors. And like, I can imagine, you said to me that you've got another studio in progress. You're not going to just start writing in that studio straight away. You're going to have to sit in there and listen to a bunch of tunes.
That's like a 6-month job, isn't it? Of getting used to it, moving the speakers around, moving the desk, your center position around. And that's long, man, yeah. But what I would say to new producers is like that little technique there of like when you go into the mix down stage, get some of the big hitters out there and reference what's going on. What's their bass doing, and what's yours doing? And is yours standing up to that? I also think as well, mate, a good pair of headphones is essential. I mean, I've got the Odyssey headphones, and that and the WOLFPACK and the mixdown stage tells me a lot. And the third thing I'll always do, and I actually do this early on when I've actually got when there's a vibe of a record in place. The first thing I'll do, Tom, is get it into a record box and get on the decks downstairs.
Yeah, man.
That tells me everything. How far off I am.
I really like a little car test, so I'll just
always
on the phone, plug it in, drive around, listen to the thing. I know my car sound system really well. I think what you said about headphones is super crucial, because there's so much more of an intimate listening experience through headphones that you can hear every detail. And for me, actually, with headphones, it's about the ends of the 8s and the edits, because it's not really, you're never going to get the balance of the bass and the kick and the tops right in that situation, but you can hear like the intimate sort of like the kind of the changes as the track progresses, and kind of so many things that you might have missed in the depths of the track in the background that you're just not going to hear when it's all sort of squished together coming through your speakers. It's just crucial. I love this because I'm relearning and getting inspired to like get back in the studio myself and make new music with this stuff fresh in my head. And it's I'm the same, mate, as well. I love having these conversations as well. And you know what, this whole thing is about learning, isn't it? And kind of you're constantly at it, man. You're constantly learning brand new things and trying to, as I say, the kind of the odd stick moves up today, and you've got to try and match it then, and learn. It's great, man. And kind of like showing other people new techniques as well, it's great. These kids that are coming through, they've got so much like stuff that's already sort of, having a digital audio workstation and all of this YouTube material. It really excites me for the future of the music. That I remember when I was first coming into this thing, and there were certain sort of negative producers that were saying everything's been done and there's nothing new. And it's just not the case. There is so much stuff that hasn't been done yet, in this music. And I feel like a lot of people sort of put a barrier like in front of themselves with that sort of kind of negative way of thinking. There's so much good music to be made, and everybody needs to be making it. Do you know what I mean? And I
think it's just all about getting out your little safety square and kind of like, pushing yourself and trying to do things that, it's very easy just to kind of go to serum. It's very easy to kind of go and get LFO tool and whatever. Try something else, man. We're all guilty of it. I do it myself, but we've just got to try and push ourselves, man. Because as you say, aiming. I remember Pesce saying to me that the aiming's being used 100,000 times, and there's 100,000 other times that you can kind of make it sound different again. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely, you could put it into Vital, or you could get the original vinyl of it and record it off the vinyl and put it into a sampler and chop it up your own way through your own gear. Make your own sound of it. There's so many different amens.
Part and parcel of things sounding the same a lot more, mate, is a number of reasons. It's because tutorials can really help people now from go to A to B very quick. Sample packs. When you're just kind of grabbing something that someone else has made for you, you're not learning the full thing, the full spectrum. You've got to make the mistakes first, you know what I mean?
I always encourage people, if they're going to get my sample packs or preset packs, that it's literally just to help you start a vibe. And then by all means, go in and change the sound as much as you can to make it your own. Because I don't want to hear my sound on your tune. Other people don't want to know that you just got that sound from me. But if it was the starting point to a beautiful tune or an amazing piece of work, then that's by all means, go at it.
I've got nothing against sample packs, by the way,
brilliant.
Or MIDI packs and all that. People say, well, I think they're brilliant. You know what I mean?
You've got some really amazing sample packs on your website, and people need to go and grab those too, man. On Viper, you guys do sample packs and stuff, so it's definitely worth checking out. And it does help.
I totally get it when you're a new producer as well, though, Tom. It's kind of like, it's hard, this game. You have got to really spend time and put good hours into it.
When I look back at like my old sample libraries, I made so much with so little. Like, I literally had sort of one folder of drums, or like, I had maybe 50 to 100 bass sounds that I'd like scrimped and scrounged from anything I could possibly would make bass. And you would just sort of like mess with them and use them all sort of like a couple times, but in different ways. And I think it could be bad in this current time if you had bought all the sample packs and everything and you've got all this stuff. And it's almost like, when you go into an American supermarket, and you're crippled by choice. There's 50 types of toothpaste.
Too much choice. Yeah.
And you're just like, well, I just want toothpaste. I don't care which one. So like a lot of times, and I don't think I would feel comfortable using other people's sample packs too much, because if I did, I would have to change the sounds that were in them. Or
Yeah. You'd have to put your own little tint on it, wouldn't you? But I mean, they're great, man. I mean, especially for new school producers, just to get that feel and to make yourself feel good when you're making a record. So just, if it's a case of kind of getting the beats in there for someone from a sample pack or horn or whatever you want to make, and it makes you feel good, that's the start for me. You know what I mean? What's important is that those people kind of learn how to make that horn, learn how to make that kick, and those snares work together. That's when you're going to come up with the hot stuff.
So what are you planning on doing with the rest of your day, bro? Because I think we've had
I'm going to
really
get your
next
nicest sample pack, mate. I'm going to rinse it out and make about 5 tunes out of it.
Perfect. I look forward to hearing it. But what are you up to for the rest of the day? You got stuff?
I'm gonna hit I'm gonna take the dog for a walk now, because I can hear him yapping in the background.
It's that time.
He wants to get out and stretch his legs. So I'm going to do that. It's like Groundhog Day at the moment, isn't it? I know my day. I know what I'm going to do like next week. And do you know what I mean?
It's like, so weird when Sunday comes along and it's just the same as every other Sunday that it's been for the last year and a bit. And you're just like, okay, all right, well, it's all good. Just keep on it, keep at it. I'm excited.
Music is my saving grace at the moment.
Yeah.
It's making me feel, it's making me feel a lot better. Like, it's giving me positive, and the label as well, man. I've got to say thank you to all our artists as well, because this last 12 months has been tough, man. And in fact, no, I've got to say thank you to all the producers in the scene. it's been goddamn tough, you know what I mean? And like financially for everyone, kind of the worry, the stress of it all. And
not even artists, like promoters and agents, managers. And even down to like bar staff and you know, there's people, security. I mean, there's so many people involved in this industry, and I really want it to come back as soon as it can, and
it will come back. It will come back. We've got to keep believing that it's going to come back.
Yeah,
and when it does, Jesus. That's going to be like the first Acid House rave all over again.
World tour time. That's what I'm saying. Every DJ's on a world tour. It's going to be
man.
back to back.
It's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing.
I was thinking, I don't know how, I'm quite used to this sort of like easier life now. And I don't know if I'm going to be a bit more selective about the shows that I play, because I was really just like, I will take anything and I'll just go and do it because it's fun. But now I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be doing like 5 till 6 in Fabric and then driving home. I might get the hotel. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to sort of treat myself a little bit more with kindness and compassion, because I definitely sort of beat myself up for 15 years. And actually this year off has been the most sleep that I've ever had, and just sort of the clearest I've ever been thinking. So like, it's really, I'm looking forward to when it does come back, and then I'm going to sort of be a lot more sort of, I guess, mature about it. And enjoying
more relaxed about it all. Yeah. I hear what you're saying, mate. Yeah. I mean, I think I'd like to say the same, but knowing the DJ in me, it's going to take
hell for leather.
Take every £150 gig that comes in. I'm just going to be out there, but I do know what you're saying there, mate. You know, it's we've just got to look after ourselves a bit more. But yeah, this is changing the way we're living in it, you know, and kind of it's a game changing time for us all.
Well, thank you so much for the time that you've given me to have this conversation. I think this has been like 50 bits of crucial information that everyone should sort of like reflect on, even if you're not like, even if you've been a producer for a long time, or you're brand new to the game, or you're not even into production. There's still a lot to learn. So like, you know, I really appreciate this conversation, man. It's been really good.
So do I.
So thank you so much. And I hope to speak to you very soon. You know, just like come back, we'll do it again. I'm sure there'll be lots more we can talk about. So
well, hopefully next time we can do it again, we can get a few different producers from Viper in the room and we can all have a little discussion, eh?
Yeah, that'd be really, really cool, man.
But Tom, I've got to say thanks, man, and keep it educating the people out there, you know, the new producers. I've got to say you're one of the first people in our scene who sample packs and all that, mate, and you've never been one of those people who kind of like, this is my cake and you can't have any of it. You share what's in your head, and you share the goodness that you've learned as well, mate, and respect TC.
Thanks, mate. I really appreciate your time. Blessings. So if you found anything in this video interesting, please smash the like button. Don't forget to hit subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so you can keep up to date with all that's new from me. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you have any ideas for future videos, I read all your comments. Don't forget to join the Discord server. Check the links for the samples and presets in the description. A massive big up to all the WOLFPACK. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace. Press.